The most difficult position to rank right now in fantasy football has to be the wide receivers. In today's pass-heavy NFL, there's multiple wide receivers from teams that can have terrific fantasy viable performances, but it makes it really hard to figure out who's going to be the more consistent one and how high could they actually end up going. So I'm going to do my best to put together my top 24 post-free agency wide receiver rankings, and we'll see if we differ anywhere. When doing wide receiver rankings, I always run into this issue. I've got 15 or 16 guys I want inside my top 12. I've got 30 guys I want inside my top 24. I've got 45 guys I want inside my top 36. There just doesn't seem to be enough spots to fit all the wide receivers that you think could have fantasy viable performances. And just because you don't have a player inside the top 24 doesn't mean that on a realistic basis that they're not going to be very close in fantasy points and really be considered a top 24 even if they don't jump into that area. So let's have some fun with my post free agency wide receiver rankings. I'm going to go through my top 24 as of right now. And with a really solid rookie wide receiver class coming out in the draft this year, these rankings will absolutely be shaken up before week 1 gets here. There could probably be some debate on who the wide receiver 1 is, but I think for the most part everyone's going to agree it's Tyreek Hill. I mean, we've seen Tyreek Hill put together massive performances with the Miami Dolphins. 2,000 receiving yards in a season is a goal he said he wants to reach, and we know he has the capability to do that with his playmaking ability and with the offense that he is in. He's going to be number 1 for me, and more than likely a majority of the other analysts out there as well. And number 2, we're going to go with CeeDee Lamb, and this was one of my must-have wide receivers last season, and there was a lot of people that said, yeah, I like CeeDee Lamb, but I'm not on board with it because I don't think that he can be the alpha. And look what he turned out to do last season. He's going to be at number 2 for me right now. Absolutely love his potential for a ton of targets, and we already know that he can make plays all over the field. At number 3, we're going to hope Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow stay healthy for an entire 17-game slate. But with no more Tyler Boyd, you have to anticipate Ja'Marr Chase seeing even more targets than what he already has over the course of his career. T. Higgins is on the 1-year deal right now because he was franchise tagged. We'll see if they get something done. And then, of course, you lost Joe Mixon in the backfield, so who knows if the running backs will see as many targets as what Mixon did last year. At number 4, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if you want to argue that Amon-Ra St. Brown might be one of the most safe wide receivers that you could draft, if not the safest, I wouldn't disagree with you. We know the offense that he plays in. We know that it's schemed to get him open, and we know that Jared Goff is constantly looking his way. If you have any concerns about the guys in front of him, Tyreek Hill and injuries or potentially Tua, CeeDee Lamb getting too much attention because he doesn't have enough weapons around him, Ja'Marr Chase getting banged up, or Joe Burrow getting banged up. If you have any questions about any of those guys, quite honestly, Amon-Ra St. Brown could be one of the top wide receivers drafted, and if you took him as the first wide receiver off the board, there would be no argument from me. He might be one of the safest bets in all of football. At number 5 is where I'm going to put Justin Jefferson. I think he has the ability to go a little bit higher. I think he has the ability to go a little bit lower. We know the talent is never in doubt, and we know he's going to see a ton of targets. He's going to be the main guy in this offense. But for the first time, he's not going to have Kirk Cousins really slinging him the ball on a consistent basis. Obviously, with the injury last year, he had a couple of guys throwing him the ball that he wasn't used to either. So things could end up working out to be just fine. As of right now, Sam Darnold's going to be throwing him the ball. Do the Vikings end up getting their quarterback that they want in the draft? We'll keep an eye on all of those things. This ranking right here could definitely end up fluctuating by the time training camp comes around. At number 6, I'm going to go with A.J. Brown. Now, this Philadelphia offense does have some consistency issues at times. And from a personal standpoint, the consistency issues with A.J. Brown definitely stem from the amount of weapons that they have there. You've got Devontae Smith. You've also got Dallas Goedert. Adding Saquon Barkley could lead to a bigger running game this season. And of course, you've got Jalen Hurts running the football and taking some touchdowns away on the ground. Not that that really hurts A.J. Brown. It just takes away some of his scoring opportunities. But for A.J. Brown, we know that he can collect yards yards in bunches. We know he's one of the best wide receivers in all of football, and we know he works well in this offense. He should see himself right in the middle of the wide receiver ones once again. At number 7, I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. Now, the New York Jets have added Mike Williams, but I mean, how many games does he realistically play? Is it 5? Is it 8? Is it 12? The dude has just been a walking injury issue his entire career. So while adding Mike Williams helps Garrett Wilson in the sense that it will take some of the pressure off, and then Mike Williams can be that deep threat on the outside, it also means if Mike Williams misses time, Garrett Wilson's going to be the main target, because honestly, sit here for a second and think, who deserves more targets in the passing game than what Garrett Wilson would? I mean, Breece Hall is the only other one that comes to mind. Garrett Wilson's going to see a huge target share this season, and hopefully if Aaron Rodgers is healthy all year long, all of those targets will be coming for him, and they'll be quality targets. Mike Evans at number 8, and I don't think that we can deny how good his season was last year with Baker Mayfield of all quarterbacks. And now Mike Evans is back, Baker Mayfield is back, we're going to be in the same offense. It's really hard not to look at Mike Evans and say, yep, this situation works for you, you're inside the top 10, and you might be one of the best wide receiver options that you could draft after the elite few go off the board to start. This one might be a little bit spicy for some of you, but I'm going to go with Michael Pittman at number 9. I really like his target percentage and what he could end up getting this year just in volume alone. But he showed last year that he can be the number 1 wide receiver, and really that offense for the most part is going to be unchanged. Michael Pittman played very well with Gardner Minshew. He played very well with Anthony Richardson. Having Jonathan Taylor healthy all season could be a huge boost to the passing game to help keep things honest on offense. Michael Pittman may not have as high as a ceiling as some of these players will, but I really feel like on a consistency basis, he's definitely going to give you the points to be right around a top 10 wide receiver every single week. In number 10, I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk, and there's still a lot of chatter about whether or not he's going to be on the team come week 1, and we'll see if anything shakes out there. I do believe he will, and we know that situation works for him. He's going to be a little bit boom or bust. There's going to be times where he just doesn't put together good games because of all the other weapons that they have there. But because of all those other weapons, it makes the big playability of Brandon Ayuk something that could hit with every single pass attempt. At number 11, I'm going to go with Stefon Diggs, and I actually have him much higher than the consensus right now because the consensus has him more towards the bottom half of the wide receiver twos, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because yes, him and Josh Allen just didn't seem to be in sync at the end of 2023, but he's going to be the main weapon in this offense. And if this Buffalo team has any chance of making the playoffs and going far, Stefon Diggs is going to have to be a huge part of that, which is going to lead to good fantasy numbers. Now, is the upside that we've seen in the past going to be there? Maybe not. But if he's getting a ton of targets, his floor should still be pretty safe. And being the main option for Josh Allen should lead him inside the top 12. I do believe he can get back there again this season. At number 12, Puka Nacua. And it seems crazy to have Puka ranked over Cooper Kupp, given how good Cooper Kupp has been. But Puka definitely seems to be the guy that's going to give you some more consistent performances now. Cooper Kupp, his age and his injuries are starting to catch up to him a little bit. He's not nearly the explosive wide receiver that we saw from a couple of years ago. Puka Nacua is now finishing that role for him, and he's doing a heck of a job of it. At number 13 is going to be Chris Olave, and the only reason I don't have him inside my top 12 is because of the way he was utilized last season. I actually did a film breakdown towards the end of the season on Chris Olave, and we took a look at a lot of the routes that he had been running, and for the most part, it felt like they were just sending Chris Olave streaking down the field to try and get open, instead of being the guy that was running all of the routes and playing more like CeeDee Lamb did last year. I mean, it literally reminded me of a Pee-wee football team where you take the fastest kid on the team, you stick him on the outside, and you say, just run down the field and try to beat everybody. And half the time it didn't even work because your quarterback couldn't even throw it that far. But in this scenario, it didn't work because Derek Carr would throw it up for him and everyone knew what he was doing, so he wasn't able to get open consistently. So if the New Orleans Saints can change some of their thought process with their offense, Chris Olave could definitely take a huge rise. But if they don't, unfortunately, he's not going to give you the upside that we would want consistently. In number 14, Devontae Adams. And as of right now, is it going to be Aiden O'Connell? Is it going to be Gardner Minshew? Is it going to be a rookie quarterback? I don't know if it could get any worse than what it was last year. but I don't know how much better it's going to get either. At number 15, DJ Moore, and he was inside the top 12 for me prior to trading for Keenan Allen. Now, the reason I'm going to have DJ Moore still towards this high-end wide receiver 2 area is because, number one, we know that more than likely Caleb Williams will be the quarterback now, which is probably going to lead to more consistency in the passing game than maybe what we saw with Justin Fields. But number two, you know, I love Keenan Allen. He's my boy. He's been one of my favorite players since he entered the league, and I stood by him, even through all those injuries, telling people that his career is going to be just fine. So it sucks to look at it and say, Keenan Allen is on the back end of his career. He missed quite a few games a couple of years ago. He missed a few games last year. There's a possibility he's going to miss a few games this year as well. I definitely love this offense a lot more than I did a few weeks ago. DJ Moore doesn't have all the upside in the world for me because he's going to lose a ton of volume over to Keenan Allen, but he's still going to be a playmaker in this offense. Nico Collins at number 16, and this is definitely going to be one of the biggest boom or bust players that you could draft. And for me, Nico Collins feels more like a best ball must-have because he's going to win you some weeks absolutely on his own. He reminds me of prime Tyler Lockett, the guy that would go off for, it felt like 30-something fantasy points in a game, and you would win because of him. And then the next week, he'd get like 5 fantasy points, and you'd lose because of him. Nico Collins, to me, is going to have a lot of the same features. He's going to have some huge weeks. He's going to have some crap weeks. But for me personally, I do feel he's got the most upside on this team. And number 17, Deebo Samuel. I think we're going to find a little bit more consistent Deebo with the way he's utilized in this offense, though it does continue to bring up issues where he could get banged up and he could miss a game or two. He doesn't have the big play potential that I think Ayuk has in this offense, but we know that once he gets the ball in his hand, he definitely can take it to the house. And number 18, Rashee Rice. And this was a guy that was super consistent at the end of 2023. Now, adding Marquise Brown, I do think will cut into his target share just a little bit. Not a ton, not enough to kill him, but enough that was still having Travis Kelce there and running the football with Isaiah Pacheco, that being a top 12 wide receiver consistently just may not be available. And number 19, Jalen Waddle. And from an efficiency standpoint, we definitely know that he has the ability to put up big numbers in every single game. With so much attention being paid over towards Tyreek Hill, it makes Jalen Waddle's life a whole lot easier, especially if the run game is just as dominant this year as it was last season. But I think the hope of having Jalen Waddle as a wide receiver 1 on a team with another dominant wide receiver 1 is kind of in the past. And for me, when I take a look at Jalen Waddle, I'm just a lot more comfortable looking at him as a low-end wide receiver 2 instead of hoping and praying that he's a guy that gives me wide receiver 1 return. At number 20, I'm going to go with DK Metcalf. This is an offense that is, number 1, going to run the football quite a bit with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Number 2, you have a really good second option out there in Tyler Lockett. And number 3, you have a really good third option out there with Jackson Smith-Njigba. And is Geno Smith going to be the guy? We saw an absolute renaissance of a season back in 2022. Comeback player of the year. Everybody was rooting for him, and I absolutely get it. He was fantastic. But we did see a little bit of a drop to 2023. So the question is going to be from 2023 to 2024, does Geno Smith take another step back, or do we see kind of a middle ground, or does he get back to being 2022? At number 21, I've got Christian Kirk, and honestly, I feel like I could end up going a little bit higher with him, but I'm also going to pump the brakes just a little bit as well. We know with this offense that it was inconsistent as all last season, and unfortunately, that led to a lot of up and down performances. Christian Kirk should absolutely be locked in as the wide receiver 1. Evan Ingram is going to get his. They're still going to run the ball with Travis Etienne. And adding Gabe Davis to the outside to stretch the field is absolutely needed in this offense. But I don't think he's going to command the target share that Calvin Ridley did last year, which will be really, really good for Christian Kirk. I could see him going as high as wide receiver 13, 12, 11, or I could see his floor being right around here as well. At number 22, it's Keenan Allen. And how crazy is it in 2024 that we're ranking 2 Chicago wide receivers inside the top 24. I already kind of mentioned it when I talked about DJ Moore earlier. Keenan Allen to me is going to be a big part of this offense, and I think he's going to do well when he's on the field, but I'm also going to bake in the fact that he might end up missing a couple of games here or there, and because of that, it's just going to hurt his overall season numbers when you take a look at full year rankings. In number 23, I'm going to go with Tank Dell, and I think there's a lot of people that are going to sit back and say, but I really believe Tank Dell is going to have more fantasy points than Nico Collins. Honestly, I think those two are interchangeable. If you wanted to move Tank Dell up to where I had Nico Collins, I would get it. If you wanted to leave him here, I would still understand it. I think Nico Collins is going to present a bigger big playability consistently. So again, he's going to have those weeks that are going to win you weeks. Where I believe Tank Dell is going to be a guy that's going to have those weeks that are really going to help your floor. He's going to have some upside still, but I do believe that he might have a little bit of a larger target share than what Nico Collins does, even if the big plays are not as big as what Nico Collins has. And with Dalton Schultz being a guy that has been re-signed, that does bear asking the question, with those two kind of working in the same space, Dell and Schultz, does that take away a few extra targets as well? And the run game with Joe Mixon also should be a lot better this year. And at number 24, I'm going to toss in Drake London. With Kirk Cousins at the helm now, it definitely should give Drake London a lot more consistency, even if he doesn't have the upside that we would like because of the other weapons around him, and maybe he's just not that alpha type of player that we think that could put up high-end wide receiver numbers. That's absolutely fine, because from a safety standpoint, Drake London should have a pretty decent floor all year. Listen, there's probably 10 or 15 other wide receivers that you could make an argument to be within inside the top 24. I left out guys like Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, Zay Flowers, Devontae Smith, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Hopkins. I left out a lot of those guys, and some of them could absolutely make their way inside the top 24, and that doesn't even include the very talented rookie class and where they land. So let's open it up for debate in the comments. Is there a wide receiver that you did not see inside my top 24 that you believe should be there? Let me know down in the comments and let me know why. I love seeing a well-educated, stat-driven approach to arguing some of these takes and giving us your thoughts, and I want to see those in the comments. But whether or not you leave a comment down below, make sure you like the video for us, subscribe if you're new here, and you have to turn on those bell notifications. So anytime we drop content, you're going to know about it right away. And YouTube should be recommending one of our last videos for you. If you missed that, make sure you check it out right now. But for now, Headliner Nation, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out, stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.